The decision to prescribe Palestine action under the Terrorism Act 2000 has become one of the most controversial moves of Keir Starmer's government. On paper, it was meant to draw a sharp line between legitimate protest and acts of criminal violence. In practice, it has created a muddle in which elderly protesters waving placards are treated in the same legal category as jihadists planting bombs. So starting with the law itself, the Terrorism Act defines terrorism not only as violence against people, but as also serious damage to property carried out for political ends. In this broad definition, it's allowed the Home Office to include Palestine action alongside Al-Qaeda and IRA, but not the Iranian Republican Guard. It's extraordinary. Their break-in at Elbit Systems factories, their spraying of red paint at RAF Briars Norton. These are serious offences, but the public instinctively doesn't associate them with terrorism, and it's here that optics matter. In the weeks since Proscription, more than 700 people have been arrested, many of them academics, writers, pensioners. Half of those detained at the mass Parliament Square protests were over 60, and this has raised profound questions about proportionality. If the purpose of Proscription is to protect the public from imminent threat of mass violence, how is this served? By hauling off poets and retired vicars. Enter Sally Rooney, the Irish novelist. She's announced her intention to use royalties from her books and BBC adaptations to support Palestine action. Under the law, that could make her liable to a 14-year prison sentence if she steps foot in Britain. And whether one agrees with her politics or not, the idea of a Booker shortlisted author who could be arrested for giving a speech at Hay on Wye Festival is not an advertisement for democratic confidence. It is rather an advertisement for martyrdom. And even within Parliament there's unease. Ed Davey, the leader of the Lib Dems, a fellow who was involved in the in the Horizon scandal, has written to the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation calling for a review. Stella Creasy and Peter Hain have warned that the current approach confuses violent intimidation with peaceful protest and risks undermining trust in law itself. And polling shows that 7 in 10 Labour members think Tarmer and Yvette Cooper were wrong to prescribe Palestine action at all. The government insists it acted on intelligence, disturbing intelligence, about possible future attacks. Perhaps so. But the timing, the lack of transparency, the refusal to publish evidence have all fed suspicion that Proscription was a political signal, not a necessity. And signals are one thing, but once the law is engaged, it carries real teeth. It is one thing to criminalise vandalism, it's quite another to make it terrorism. There's also the wider cultural cost. Already, we've seen prominent writers, academics and artists saying they may not visit Britain for fear of arrest. Alice Oswald, the Oxford poet, has been detained. This is not how you defend free society. As Rooney herself put it, if declaring support for a controversial protest group is now support for terror, then the boundaries of free speech have been dramatically withdrawn and redrawn. So, where do we go from here? 3 thoughts. 1. Proportionality needs to be restored. Proscription should be tightly targeted at groups with an intent to kill, not simply damage property. To use it against protest movements, however unruly, undermines the gravity of terrorism law itself. 2. Transparency is essential. If ministers claim secret intelligence justifies banning Palestine action, then some portion of that case needs to be made public. Otherwise, the suspicion that Proscription is being used as a political convenience will only grow, and trust in the government, trust in law, will be eroded to the point of banality. 3. There need to be time limits and reviews. Lord Anderson has argued that Proscription should always be time limited, forcing governments to justify renewal. That principle would prevent bans from becoming permanent tools. The government faces a paradox. It sought to show toughness by prescribing Palestine action. Instead, it's created martyrs, emboldened defiance, alienated its own grassroots, and provoked an Irish nationalist into open rebellion. The law must be firm against violence, but when it begins to confuse protest with terrorism, it ceases to protect democracy, it starts to corrode it.